civil society grouping the Active Citizens Movement wants more protection for whistleblowers who appear before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Now, some whistleblowers who have appeared before the commission have lost their jobs and live in fear after they lifted the lid on acts of corruption. The ACM says it has proposed a change in the Protected Disclosures Act of 2000 in order to ensure the safety of whistleblowers. For more on this, I'm joined by Mr. Aslam Mayat, who is an attorney as well as a member of Active Citizens Movement. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mayat, and thank you so much for your time. Now, in the introduction, I highlighted just some of the threats that are faced by whistleblowers. Some have lost their jobs, others have strained relationships because of that. But we've also seen incidents where people have been shot at shortly after having appeared at the commission. Now, you are calling for greater protection for whistleblowers. What type of protection did you have in mind?
Yeah, look, good afternoon to all of you. There's various protections that can be implemented, and obviously the most obvious one is the protection, physical protection. The second one is the protection in the workplace, losing jobs, being harassed, not getting promotions, being faced with fake disciplinary charges, and the financial aspect of being able to withstand trying to finance legal costs, whereas either the private entity or the state entity has unlimited funds at its disposal. And then there's also the question of mental support, social support, and then the whole relook at legislation and to see how they can be supported and also encouraged, whether it's by way of incentives or other encouragement, to recompense them for the losses that they've suffered, that they don't lose their jobs and positions that they held, and so on. So there's a number of various aspects that have been looked at and submissions have been made to the Zondo Commission.
Mr. Mayat, who foots the bill for legal costs for whistleblowers when they appear at the Commission?
Well, at the Commission would be a separate issue. I don't think I don't know the position regarding the Commission. What we've been looking at is the legal costs of a whistleblower who makes a report in terms of the Protected Disclosures Act, which is rooted through the labor relations process. And that's where all the difficulties arise for whistleblowers.
And how far are you willing to take this fight as far as legislation change is concerned? You mentioned that as one of your key priorities.
Well, the Zondo Commission asked society to come forward and make submissions because they've identified whistleblowing as a key to the success of the Commission, to its work, and also generally for this to root out corruption, to save our democracy. They've identified it as absolutely vital. And they then requested submissions to be made. The Active Citizens Movement, then what they did is that they went into an extensive investigation by consulting with whistleblowers, listening to their testimonies, real-life testimonies, the hardships that they felt, what they felt they needed as regards support. And then we engaged with the advocates and attorneys and investigated the various acts, the PDA, the Labor Relations Act, the Constitution, the Companies Act, and then submitted proposals to the Commission for changes to be made. Various different suggestions were made, including taking it out of the ambit of the Labor Relations Act, probably having a specialized court to deal with it. But most important was that in terms of the Labor Relations Act, the immediate recourse for a whistleblower in terms of the act was to report it to the employer, which immediately blows the cover of the whistleblower, and he or she is then subjected to harassment, to victimization, to loss of job, disciplinary processes often concocted, and then to be able to have the resources to fund the litigation, they don't have it because their salaries are cut. Whereas the perpetrator either works for the state or works for a private company, and there's unlimited resources to continue the harassment, and the perpetrator is kept in his position, at worst suspended on full pay, and then there's no punishment. At the end of the day, even if the whistleblower wins, the shareholder or the taxpayer, that's you and I, end up paying, and not the perpetrator who retains his job or maybe is given another posting elsewhere. So, the plight of the whistleblowers, losing your job, your family relations get strained. As you say, there's threats of physical violence. People might commit suicide or emigrate. There's a huge financial cost and prejudice and suffering to the whistleblower, and we're pretty much left to their own.
Is it realistic or even possible, Mr. Mayat, to completely remove all of these risks from being a whistleblower? Because apart from just the legislation, we're also talking here about interpersonal relations and interpersonal dynamics, which involve people, which are variables that can seldom be controlled.
You're absolutely correct. Legislation is not the panacea to everything. We study overseas legislation. You get the USA, which actually gives you incentives and so on. But more important, and this is where the fight really takes place, is that civil society needs to get behind whistleblowers. The support of civil society, whether it's psychologists, the psychiatrists, funding, just general support from civil society, because the whistleblowers feel that they are all alone. They're fighting this on behalf of society and being probably trampled underneath and getting very little support from civil society. So this is where we've submitted made the submissions. That will be a process. But beyond that, the Active Citizens Movement intends to join up, collaborate with whistleblowers, and reach out to civil society to come and support them, so there's more knowledge about whistleblowing and more support given to whistleblowers.
So as I let you go, Mr. Mayat, as an organization, should somebody want to become a whistleblower, are you a point of entry and a point of infrastructure support and advice for them?
Yes, look, when we did this investigation, we formed a group and lots of whistleblowers joined in to collaborate in making these submissions. So we've already got quite a group of whistleblowers together with attorneys, lawyers, and so on. And yes, you can contact Active ACTIVE MSA at gmail.com. So it's active CMSA at gmail.com. Make the approach, whatever type of support, even if it's just moral support, even if it's just awareness, because the whistleblowing, very few people know about look, even with the current legislation, there's a lot that can be done to root out corruption, make it known. Very few people, even lawyers know what the Act currently allows, and there's an obligation as well.
And I suppose that organizations like yourself, Mr. Mayat, are a good port of call, for that type of information and support before one actually does go ahead with it. But we thank you very much for your insight this afternoon. That's Mr. Aslam Mayat. He's an attorney as well as a member of the Active Citizens Movement on whistleblowing and the efforts that they are making to try and ensure that legislation changes and that there's greater support for whistleblowers.